PG-13 cottagecore sapphic romance short story greater than 200,000 words search. And welcome back to Devlog. In the last part I worked on and in this part I work on the next level of my videos game. This level, being the desert desert, has to have a lot of desert sprites and also a lot of dessert sprites, so sand and rocks and candies. The first thing I drew was the candy ball launcher. This is for an actual mechanic of the level, so it was pretty needed, required, definitely a thing I should have drawn for the level. I very much like this. The sticky balls that the launcher fires are basically just little circles. They don't have to be super complex, and I wasn't really sure how to draw a bubble without it looking overly detailed and off-putting, so I just made a blue and a pink alternate for the different kinds of sticky ball launchers. But the part of this I really like is the sticky ball launcher cannon. It has a rusty little feel to it, and then I just drew the sticky balls, the pink and blue ones, kind of goopily hanging from it, and also it has a sticker on the front which is then peeling off. I think this was a very nice effect, and I'm pretty proud of how well it looks. Originally when I was drawing this I thought the rusted little cannon looked terrible and awful, and I doubted myself as an artist, and I thought, oh, I really should have got that degree in anthropology and quit this whole art thing. Would have been a whole lot easier. But then I drew the sticky balls on the launcher and I felt it looked a whole lot better. This also has an animation within it. Basically when the balls fire, the cannon does a little squash and stretch and it looks nice. Part of the effect of this is that I have a different sprite that is the back of the cannon, this being the other side you see when you have the actual view of the cannon, and this part doesn't move, but the actual cannon itself does move, so it has a squishy little effect when it fires a ball. The next thing I drew was the squishy, sticky surfaces. This is another mechanic needed, and I'm pretty sure I talked about it in a previous devlog. I basically drew bubble gum. I drew sticky bubbly gum, and then I drew a pink version, and then I drew a blue version. I was surprised at how easy this was to do. I basically just do color depth for each of the surfaces, and that's it. That's the entirety of the sprite. I apply a filter over one of them to make them look a bit more plasticky and shiny, but it's basically just color depth and drawing goopy surfaces. I, for one, quite enjoy drawing a goopy surface. There's something about drawing a big old pile of goop that is quite fun. The next thing I drew was the actual desert floor. This was the main visual that the player is going to be walking on in the stage, so it has to look good, and I'm pretty proud of how it turned out. I was very unfamiliar with how to actually draw sand, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. This was also the first part of these sprites that I drew with my new drawing software, and I also invested in a new drawing tablet, and I think it definitely helped a whole lot. If you're curious, I bought a Canvas 13. It's a big old screen and you draw with the pen on it. It's pretty useful. I think it helped a lot in the artistic portions of creating these sprites. My only fear is that now that I have this new drawing tablet that my art style is going to completely change because of the actual ability to draw things cohesively, and the art style of this level is going to completely mismatch with the art style of my previous level, but whatever, who cares about that. I drew sand. It was pretty easy to do. Again, it was a whole lot of drawing things to match the color theory and then blending it in so it looks like sand. All I had to do was add little peaks to the sand flow and add a little bit of depth that way. The sand I'm pretty happy with of how it turned out. But since this is a desert desert, I also needed an alternate of the sand, with this being the candy sand? Canned? I basically drew a version of the sand with cream on the top. This, on the other hand, was pretty difficult to get the art style down. I tried doing a lot of alternate versions of candy cream with shading, and it all looked really creepy and off-putting. So I basically just drew an outline, added a very slight bit of shading to the cream, and that's all I did for the cream. I don't think it particularly matches the rest of the art style or a lot of other things, but I think it looks fine as itself, so I'm okay with it. This led me to draw ice cream so that the candy canes could have something to stick out of. I originally thought the ice cream looked awful and I hated it and I wanted to redraw it completely, but I showed it to my darling, loving wife who is super definitely real. And she said, "Wow, Alice, I love being a real person who exists, and I like how those candy canes look, and I also like how the ice cream looks, and that gave me the confidence to enjoy my own drawings." I'm pretty happy with how the ice cream turned out. I think maybe the art style maybe looks a bit too detailed on parts of it, but I couldn't really draw a simple looking ice cream sprite for parts of it and have it still look like an ice cream, so it mostly just looks a bit too detailed in parts, but I'm okay with that because I think it looks nice. Again, like all the other things with the drawing ice cream, a lot of it was just matching the colors of how regular ice cream looks, so you have the actual depth and shading of ice cream. I used an oily brush and I drew little speckles on the ice cream to add depth. I then made alternates of this ice cream with chocolate sauce on top to add variety, and then I made alternates of all of these with candy canes stuck into them to have hazard versions of ice cream. I then drew a bowl. Fun, just for fun, just a fun little bowl. The bowl is mostly because I, one, thought it would be funny to have the character run inside of a bowl, and B, I need something to hold ice cream in and kind of have a curved little surface for specific platforms. So I drew a bowl and then had the back of the bowl as a different sprite, the front of the bowl as a different sprite, and then I can slot ice creams or I can slot candy inside of the bowl for the player to be able to walk on. Visually, once again, a very simple sprite, just has a lot of colour and lighting to make it look like a real bowl. I think the actual art style or drawing technique I use for the bowl is very blobby and weirdly painterly, I guess. I don't know the artistic terms for it. It's been a hot minute since I was in art school, but the painting technique I used for the drawing bowl was basically just blobbing a bunch of colours to make it look like an actual bowl and have the actual shading and lighting a bowl would have. Mostly just trying to mimic the reflective surface of a bowl. I then drew a bunch of sprites for the rocky road. These were important because I needed a surface that was not sand, so I drew these chocolatey, nice little sprites that the player can run on. I then had a goopy little surface below them and put marshmallows inside of them. I don't think these particularly read as what they should be, that being a rocky road candy sort of thing that's gooping, but it looks sufficiently like an actual candy and it fits with the art style, so I don't particularly mind. It was mostly a trouble of making the surface look rocky and stony enough, but still candy-like. Originally this was going to be an actual rock with marshmallows in it, but that looked really weird and didn't really fit with the level. The next thing I drew was a bunch of rocks. Deserts have rocks. But to make these more fitting with the theme of Desserts Desert, I also drew alternate versions with candy on top of them, specifically cream. These are mostly just for more detail to areas, so it's not just sand everywhere. But I like how they looked. The method I did for drawing these is just to draw random rocky shapes, and then draw the lightest elements, the darkest element, and blend these together with a rocky looking pen. I was trying to go for a more painty style with these, and I think it went pretty well. I'm pretty happy with how these look visually. I think they look unique and interesting, even though they are just rocks. Finally, I have the red vine candy. We don't have these in England, I don't think, so I don't know what these are, but I see them on the internet a lot, and I thought they would be interesting as an actual sprite shape for the player to walk on, because I needed something that could ostensibly be bendy and curve around levels to make it for more interesting areas, so it's not just sand and rocks. I was very happy with how this turned out. This took maybe 10 minutes to draw in completion. It was a very easy thing to draw. I just drew one strip of the red vine and then the background for it, and then duplicated this and arranged them in a way where it looked layered and like the actual candy, so it had the effect of the top part twisting around. I'm really happy with how these look. They are very fun to draw. The next thing I drew was the candy canes. These are the actual hazard in this area, because I was trying to think of a candy that would ostensibly look as a hazard, so I just drew a bunch of broken candy canes. I'm a pretty big fan of how these turned out. I think they very much visualize how a hazard should look for the level. They have a eye-catching color, they stand out in the setting, and they look pretty nice. I think the favorite part of these to have drawn is the actual spiky surface. I tried to get this jagged sort of look for them so that the candy cane looks like it's actually broken off and has a different surface as to where it is broken. And I think I did this pretty well. I think it turned out pretty well. But these also looked kind of awkward just in the scene. I obviously have things that I can place over these, like little sand piles, so they blend in more with the scenery, but in certain parts they looked a bit awkward, so I had to draw something for these to stick out of. And that's it for Devlog. I'm really happy with how this all turned out. I'm a pretty big fan of all the sprites I've drawn for this Devlog, and I had a lot of fun drawing them. Now it's the point where I'm going to talk about drawing for a really long time. Since I was dedicating myself to actually finishing this game, which means drawing a lot of sprites for all the levels, I actually seriously invested in drawing tools. Before, I just had a Wacom tablet that was a Surface one, and I was drawing on Photoshop, which I now realize is not super great for drawing, especially because it was a very old version. But now I have upgraded, and I have got a better drawing tablet with a screen on it, which I find a lot easier to draw with. Maybe because I'm horribly uncoordinated, but being able to actually see the surface that I'm drawing on means that I can actually draw things a whole lot easier. The Wacoms are nice, but I had a lot of difficulty actually using them to draw things accurately as I would want. As mentioned, the tablet I bought was a canvas, I think. They're pretty fun. Because this is my job, that was also a tax write-off. I've also been using Clip Studio Paint for actually drawing things. This was a whole lot better than Photoshop in my opinion. At least for me, I think the blending tools and the different pens you can use are a lot easier for me than in Photoshop. Overall, pretty fun for drawing and has really fueled my ability to more accurately and consistently draw couplings from cartoons I enjoy, and also the sprites in the game too. In the next devlog, I'll probably make a level, but who's to say what I'm going to do?